you heard the word militia, there was a physiological response in you. I don't care who you are. You understood that that is something I don't want a part of. I don't want to go to jail. Don't put that word on me. I'm not a guy running around with camo and AR-15 in the woods, learning how to shoot and talking about how I get cats out of trees and help during disasters. That is a shaped perception, and we're going to talk about that quite in depth.
Father God, you are matchless in your greatness. And we thank you for it, Lord. Lord, we thank you that you are ruling even now and reigning over all the universes, oh God. But Lord, in particular, we thank you that you are ruling and reigning over this republic. And as we say systematically and intentionally, oh God, you are the sovereign. And so, Lord, we thank you for the time again today, Lord, to have a discussion here related to the things that we're about to see this republic restored. And we invite your Holy Spirit to be here in our midst, oh God. We'll be careful to give you the glory and the honor. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, praise the Lord. Once again, I'm Brad Boardman. This is the Sovereign Solutions Show. We're doing our best to bring you a new episode weekly. Sometimes that gets a little tricky, but so far we're able to stay on that schedule, and we're thanking the Lord for helping us with that. But this morning we're going to have a discussion here, and I'm going to bring my guest in here. Many of you who have listened to us will recognize him, and we're getting ready to launch a little bit of a series of episodes, and in the past I have talked about this topic as the other tool. We're gonna uncover that a little bit better today to know if there's any question about what the other tool is. The Constitution gives us two tools that enable we, the people, to enforce the Constitution. One of them is grand jury. And as I bring in Kevin Ennett this morning, my good friend down in Colorado, uh, great to have him here with us. He's been with us before, but we're going to talk about in this episode, we're going to introduce the series that we have in mind to discuss, and that series will be about the topic of militia, well-regulated militia. So, Kevin, you're looking good. Uh, Thanks for coming.
You as well, Brad. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's always fun to get in a room with you, and uh, I think we'll go ahead and start just by letting how I typically do is let the guests just say a few words about who they are and refresh people's memory. We may have people listening for the first time that might not know who you are and how you're relating to the Tactical Civics mission. But why don't you go ahead and give us a thumbnail?
All right, cool. Thank you. So I'm a father of three and a husband to an amazing wife who's a physical therapist. We live in, I guess, central western Colorado, up in the mountains, as far away as from Denver as we can get, um,
And still be in Colorado.
and still be in Colorado and have that beautiful scenery and be able to afford it at the same time.
Mhm.
No, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps. From the very beginning, they put you through the ringer and with education. It's called professional military education, and from the beginning to the end, you're inundated with warfare doctrine. And during that time frame, I ended up going to a military university, which had a lot of instructors from the National Defense and Intelligence College, and they educated me in the conduct of warfare from the intelligence support side. My degree is in intelligence studies with a minor in low intensity conflict and special operations, which equates to fifth generation warfare. Now, I would never portend that I'm an expert in anything, but I did spend a lot of time in that problem. I spent a lot of time learning about that problem and then actively practicing it from operations centers anywhere from California to Syria to Iraq to Southeast Asia and back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I retired. So, needless to say, I don't think that I'm an expert, especially on militia, but it's a topic that's so incredibly simple to understand that a third grader should be able to do it. So I think I'm maybe qualified to
You're
touch this
competent.
subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciate you like putting the fidelity in me. We've done quite a bit of research to make sure that we approach this because there's a lot of bad air around that term militia. And with my experience in the intelligence community, especially with psychological operations and propaganda, when I started to research this, it was immediately understood that it was a very intentional propaganda storm
Right.
placed on this specific word, and it has created an environment where it is now stigmatized, and I understand exactly why that had to be.
Yeah. 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 Well, so yeah, that's a great setup for what we're trying to do here, Kevin, and you know, uh, for this episode, just for the listener to know right off the bat, what we're planning on doing a series of episodes on the topic of well-regulated militia. We'll probably get into the history and some other things. In fact, what we're going to do here is Kevin and we have kind of an initial layout of episodes that we're planning. And let me say first that these episodes probably will not, well, most assuredly will not be back to back to back to back. So they're not going to be just one right after the other in the episode lineup here. Once they're all done, a person that wanted to just, intently talk about and study militia could listen to them all right in a row. But that's not how they're going to be released. But what we do want to do in this episode is just kind of give you an introduction to where we think we're going with our conversations in episodes that are coming up. And so Kevin and we've kind of laid this out a little bit in an outline, and we've agreed to we're going to take turns here and kind of go through this outline and just give you some real high points of of things we might be talking about in any particular episode. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start with this episode right here. When we get done going through this outline, we're going to come back and we're going to wrap up with just again, not a deep dive into anything today, but we're going to talk about some of the absolute lies that are told about the topic of militia. So we're gonna, and we'll probably just try and give you a very brief clearing up of those things. In later episodes, we'll probably come back and talk in a little more detail about them. And then today, the idea of reclaiming the truth about what we, the people, were always supposed to have. So let that thing sink in a little bit. When we get into these episodes, you'll learn that militia, right along with the other tool, grand jury, these are ancient institutions. They preceded our Constitution, our republic, by hundreds and hundreds of years. And so, and then of course, when at the founding of our republic, the founding fathers incorporated these things right into the Constitution. So these are things that we should have had all along. We'll talk a little bit about that. Describe what lawful, well-regulated militia will really look like. Okay. And I've said here, badge, sidearm, accountability. It's really about that simple. And I'm sure Kevin will be able to unfold that a little bit for us today, and then show how it fits into the bigger picture of Constitution enforcement. So we'll just touch on those brief bullet points here in today's episode. But Kevin, why don't you go ahead and tell them what we might have planned for call it episode number 1 of the series.
Okay. Yeah, I can't foresee us putting a number on how many episodes we're going to end up doing it. We want this to be into bite-sized chunks, so that way it's not a lot of information to take in all at once, even though I feel like it's going to be feeding through a fire hose for a little while. But ultimately, that first episode, the one that'll be after this one, will kind of focus on how the militia was once universal and local, and every man was a part of it. It was a part of everyday life. It wasn't anything that people got paid for, but it was imperative that we had that type of involvement. And if you understand what popular sovereignty is and how we're supposed to practice self-government in the United States, this was it. This was one of the 2 mechanisms through which you did it. And anybody between the ages of 16 and 60 was intimately a part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the government created a false replacement, which was the National Guard. It's funny, whenever you take a look at history, it definitely shines a light into the dark, and it takes away the stigmatism, and it creates the environment where you can have a mature discussion about controversial topics, and they become a little bit less stigmatized. And it is incredible to see how a multi-generational campaign, which really started with the Civil War, and it didn't end, but its job was predominantly done in 1933, whenever the final act of the Dick Act was put out, and the name militia in general as an administrative term was deleted from a lot of the functional governmental policies. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to talk about how the media and political elites smeared the militia as fringe. I mean, it's a propaganda campaign that's going on. And just whenever Brad opened up this conversation and you heard the word militia, there was a physiological response in you. I don't care who you are. You understood that is something I don't want a part of. I don't want to go to jail. Don't put that word on me. I'm not a guy running around with camo and AR-15 in the woods, learning how to shoot and talking about how I get cats out of trees and help during disasters. That is a shaped perception, and we're going to talk about that quite in depth. And then finally, it's for this episode, that first episode, if you will, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. And you'll find out that nothing happens in Washington, nothing happens in your local government, even county, city council, what have you, without intent, without some sort of conflict of interest, if you will. Mm-hmm. It is all purposeful. And that brings us to the second episode.
Yeah, that
I'll
right there is why we are so uh, why we confidently call Washington D.C. and all of our state capitals or state palaces organized crime. You know, I love that, Kevin. I mean, that is so true. Nothing happens there by happenstance. These things are all intentional actions. And anyway, so that's a whole discussion in and of itself. But so the episode following that, we'll call that episode 2 of the series, is we're gonna talk about David Zuniga's book. David Zuniga, of course, is the founder of Tactical Civics, and he's written extensively on um, on our plan as Tactical Civics to restore this republic, but specifically relative to the militia, he has written a book called Time to Start Over America, and which, by the way, is readily available on Amazon. So if anybody who's listening to this and you want to bone up a little bit on what some of these things are that we're going to be discussing, you can get a hold of that book for $10 or less, I'm sure, on Amazon. Time to Start Over America by David Zuniga. And just a couple of the bullet points in that book. What if we, the people, just restart what's been stolen? Okay, so we asked that question, and we'll try to have enough discussion about it to answer that. Tactical Civics is restoring militia county by county. Okay, that is going to be a fun discussion, because we've determined that if any of these things are going to happen, we're not doing this on a grassroots basis. We don't use the word grassroots around here in Tactical Civics. That indicates something that could be walked on. But we, my preferable word to that is local. Okay, so county by county, and then also in Time to Start Over America, David covers. He's the fact that this is restoration of our republic. This is not revolution. Okay, so that is one of the hugely attractive things about the Tactical Civics mission, is that we are in favor of lawful, peaceful, and permanent action that will bring this republic back to where it's supposed to be. Then finally in that book, the final bullet point that I've got here this morning is it's doable and it's aligned with real authority. Real authority. And that will be a great little bit to unpack also. We'll talk, I'm sure when we get there, we'll talk about the difference between authority and power. Because you need to know the difference. So, Kevin, what'll come after that?
Well, it's the 2A idolatry. It's kind of a false gospel nowadays. And if you ever ask, what about the other 13 words of the Second Amendment, you'll answer that question for yourself. But we're going to talk about how, like, owning a gun doesn't necessarily make you part of the militia. Although, like, having a gun in your house was required in the beginning, to the point where the local government would help you raise money to make sure that you had one. And if there was anybody who was not in the militia actively because they had a certain job, like a minister, or they would be the ones to buy the guns for the ones that couldn't afford it. It was an imperative. It was required. And if you understand that the thing that made America special was the middle class, because the middle class was the balancing function, not just the balance of powers within government. The middle class was that function within the public that created the balance. And if all of them had guns, then their servants were a little bit reluctant to antagonize them, just like a monkey in a cage, basically. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but militia is a function of government. It's not gear. I mean, you can read the only law enforcement mechanism that's mentioned anywhere in any of our founding documents is the militia. And that creates the question of the universe of Justice Department and local law enforcement, to where you have to question, like, why were these things put into place to replace the militia when the militia is in the most responsible hands of all.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, we're going to talk about how we must take up the responsibilities and not just yell about our rights, because we can see the haphazard nature of how government has taken over our lives. And I feel like we're on the precipice of losing this permanently if we don't take up that responsibility ourselves, because as the meme in Tactical Civics says, is presidents are simply the hood ornament on America's mood swings. And I think that's such an incredibly complex comment, because we keep looking to presidents to fix the problem when we are the only lawful authority. And that's that final point, is it's about the lawful force and the lawful authority. And like, we're the only lawful authority in the United States to fix things. Presidents are there just to kind of keep things in line while we do the hard work.
Yeah.
But yet we believe in them like they're going to fix it. And they've proven over 200 years they're not.
Yeah. Boy, in spades. Uh-huh. Wonderful. Yeah. Just going through this, Kevin, it's just, my mouth is starting to water, because this is going to be such rich conversation that we'll be able to have on these topics. And, I really feel like, one of the things that Kevin and I were talking earlier, one of the things that we really want to begin to do, certainly this little series we're doing, is we're not saying that it's going to solve the problem, but what we want to do is begin to destigmatize the term militia. And, that's going to be a very large project in this republic to get people back to where when they hear the word militia, like you say, Kevin, that physiological response, when they hear the word militia, they're not shrinking back in some sort of fear or anxiety or whatnot, but they'll know that what it should have been all along. And
It's the
anyway,
manifestation of true service to the
there you
country.
go. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So then in a following episode, about the fourth episode, we're going to talk about well-regulated and what that means. Well-regulated, my heading here says means trained. Oh, and I love this word, accountable. So we're gonna we say often in our studies and so forth in tactical civics that we are not aware of one single militia group today. So a group that purports to be militia that is constitutional. Okay. And there are, and I'm not real up on all the different groups. So I don't know how many different militia groups there are out there, but we're going to talk about what makes a militia constitutional. And it's a very, very simple thing. I'm not even going to let the cat out of the bag here today, because that'll be fun to get into. But there's just one simple factor that makes militia constitutional. So we'll talk about that. Well-regulated means trained, disciplined, and prepared, not controlled by government. Okay.
Can't be. Yeah.
Training cycles, local oversight, command structure. Those will be terms that Kevin will be way more familiar with than I am. I have never been in the military. So describe the look. Okay, so what is it? What does a true constitutional militia man look like? Badge, sidearm, no no camo, and anyway, we'll get into that more deeper during that episode. Neighbors known, respected, and backed by law. These people who are in the militia are our neighbors. And that, I'm imagining during that discussion, we may hearken back to what did militia actually look like at the founding of this republic. And Who were these people? Well, they were the guys sitting next to you, at the restaurant or, in church or whatever. Um, but so that'll be that episode. Kevin, why don't you go ahead with the next one?
I love the transition that we got here because it goes into the militia ordinances, which is the proposed plan to move ahead and by that has been shaped by tactical civics over the years through trial and error and analyzing the law and make sure that we're staying within that peaceful approach to this potentially violent subject.
Yeah.
The it's how do you get from where we're at now to where we need to be? Because it seems like a monumental task. And I think that there's an apathy in Americans nowadays that kind of look at this problem and say, oh, it's too big for us to fix. And even that apathy has been installed. I mean, 2025 is the 200-year anniversary, kind of quietly the 200-year anniversary of the public schooling system. And after 200 years, like what we are creating in the school system today is precisely what it set out to create 200 years ago. And that's includes school shootings, that the transgender like madness, the chaotic thought processes, the kids that can't focus. We are precisely where they set out to put us.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we were talking about this subject, like how do we get from A to B, get back to normalcy and sanity? And we're going to do that by defining what these ordinances are, why the county must pass it lawfully, how they don't necessarily, like, it's not a force, us forcing them to do anything, but it's their duty for them to enact these things on behalf of the people's interests and how we're going to manifest the appropriate interest. Because if it's not for the people, or if it's not something that people want, it's just not going to happen. And that's the American way of life, right?
Yep.
And then we're going to discuss the priorities of work, right? Which is the grand jury and first, and then the militia follows. I've got a study guide that says 70% grand jury and 30% militia, and that's truly it. Like, the militia is a big part of it. It is a critical element, but unless you've got that lawful administration of we the people up front, then the militia really has nothing to enforce, but it can act as the teeth.
Yeah.
We'll get into that deep, man. I don't really want to talk about it right now that I'm starting to cover it, but so, and then at that point, like what is required from the county and the city or the county volunteers, the people that would be a part of this, the people who would implement this, and then how life looks on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. And right there, when we get to that, I'm sure we'll be dipping into this idea that, and I was actually involved in tactical civics for, a couple of years before it really dawned on me, because we have these 7 action items. In fact, this might be let me do this. Let me pull over to this screen here so we can just show these 7 action items. So these are what we have in mind in terms of actions that we are going to take, we the people, to fully restore our republic. But the point that dawned on me, because we talk about our CEO, Robert Drake, I think, is the one who coined the phrase the bullseye, our bullseye right now. See, our bullseye ultimately, has accomplished all 7 of these actions, but our bullseye right now is to enforce the Constitution. Enforce the Constitution. And it occurred to me that once we get done with actions 1, 2, and 3, not all 7, but 1, 2, and 3, we the people will be enforcing the Constitution. So, and it also occurred to me then that actions 4, 5, 6, and 7 should be, it'll all be work, but they should be not as difficult once the evildoers realize that we, the people, are now enforcing the Constitution. And if they try and get in and monkey with what we're doing, or trying to prevent what we're doing in actions 4 through 7, chances are they're going to be the targets of grand jury investigations. So anyway, and there's a good likelihood of that. So I just thought I'd throw that in. We'll probably be dipping into that in that particular episode. So um, we'll come back here. Let's see. Is it my turn?
It is, yes, sir. Why we
Okay.
must back the grand jury. Why militia must back the
Yeah,
grand jury.
yeah. So yeah, we'll do an episode on that whole really the relationship between grand jury. Okay, so just imagine we're going to have our ordinances stood up in your county. You'll have your ordinances stood up in your county. So all that says is that the county recognizes that grand jury will be fully operational in that county and certified and all systems go, as will well-regulated militia in that county. So then there'll be a relationship between the two. So militia isn't standalone, it's the enforcement arm of the grand jury. So when the grand jury gets in and investigates, they decide to indict, or during the course of their investigation, they want evidence brought in, or they want warrants served, or whatever. Militia will be involved in that process. Now, without militia, uh, grand jury presentments lack teeth. And really, that's what, you know, and we'll probably have a little more to this discussion of this destigmatization business of militia, because what militia is doing is giving what the grand jury says teeth. Okay. And that does not need to look like a bunch of out of control, you know, machos running around out in the woods, saying this and that. So we'll get into that more. Um, Sheriffs. Oh, we'll get into the sheriff topic a little bit in that episode, and we won't even get into that there, but suffice it to say. So if you're doing any advanced study on this, as these episodes are coming up, take a good look at the Constitution, and I challenge you to find the word sheriff in the Constitution. So enough said about that. But militia will serve um, a role that sheriffs maybe are supposed to be filling right now. And then finally, we the people, grand jury, militia. That is going to be a common thread through all of this. That grand jury and militia are we the people doing our duty. Grand jury is we the people. Militia is we the people doing our duty. Okay, Kevin. Let's see. Does that bring us to the last one that we've got on our sheet today?
Yep, and I think I'm just sitting here having a conversation with you. I feel like we've got an insert for some other ones. You'd mentioned earlier something that's whenever you were going over the actual 7 action steps, the 4 phases of the tactical civics plan.
Mm-hmm.
Appropriate, maybe not, but I'll mention it so that way those who it kind of like reaches their spidey senses, they can go ahead and start a pre-study. But like in military strategy, you've got a center of gravity, and that hinges on, which is the element of your enemy, so to speak, that enables him or her to operate. And then you've got critical vulnerabilities to that center of gravity. And then further down the line, you end up developing a scheme of maneuver and an exploitation plan to disable it. And it is a very methodical plan and path from you being in the position where you are to victory. And we can show how that was. We'll obviously go over these things here and there whenever we're talking about how the Civil War through the Dick Acts were critical vulnerabilities to that center of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be a military strategy topic, and to learn what it was that the enemy put against us in order to be successful in their campaign, and then how tactical civics applies that same
Turn it around.
sound strategy to be successful in our campaign.
Yeah.
So it's not just a fly-by-night project of a whimsical, I guess, fringe We the People group. This is tangible, peaceful, lawful action.
Yeah.
But in that final episode that we've got listed here on the outline, it says the most intimidating thing is the badge, and anybody who's had the sheriff come and knock on their door understands exactly what that means. Anybody who has been pulled over by a police officer and sees them approaching them in their rearview mirror knows exactly that pitter patter that you get in your heart because now, like, the gig is up. I got busted speeding, or somebody's calling the sheriff about my loud motorcycles. I'm going to get cited for something in my house.
It's either what did I do wrong or I got caught.
Exactly, exactly. And it's no different with the militia, except the person that's walking up to your house or walking up to your car, you know who they are because they're a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
They've established themselves as a moral peacekeeper. You recognize them as your neighbor, and the de-escalation has already happened because you understand that person's character, and you're like, well, if this guy says that I really screwed up, then maybe I need to reflect and maybe I need to figure out where it is that we can work together to where I'm not out of line or he's not misunderstood, whatever it is. But you'll have that mechanism, just like what Article 3 courts are supposed to be. We're not supposed to have a jury of not our peers. We're supposed to have a jury of the people that know our character so that way they can duly judge us based on the evidence.
Yeah.
But that final episode is going to focus. It's like, it's not the tactical vests. It's not AR-15s. It's none of the things that we've been led by a servant and rambunctious government to believe that militia is. It's the badge. It's the sidearm. It's the character behind the man or woman who is enforcing the law in our republic.
Yep.
Because they've got the lawful authority, the local accountability, and it is, like you were saying earlier, is the real teeth behind the law. It always has been.
And they're trained. See, that's, we want to get to the place where people will realize that if somebody like that should show up at a doorstep, they didn't just get plucked out of the mix and handed a gun and said, here, go do that. No. These are well-regulated, trained, professionally trained. We don't want to get into the whole paid thing, so that's that.
Yeah.
I guess maybe there's a better word for that. We'll figure out what that is. But these people are there as representatives of we the people, all of us. And so it's yeah, I just think this is going to be. So did we cover? Did we cover all of that, Kevin? Or
yes, I mean,
okay.
For the whole series, whatever the overarching, I guess the end state, what we want to achieve in this whole thing is, we want the people that tune in and listen to this to have a confident and very valid picture of, or an image in their mind of what militia is, because
Right.
it is a mature conversation. It can't just be something that you dismiss. I mean, it was important enough for them to create it now, nearly 1,000, oh yeah, it's more than 1,000 years ago, that this thing was built and tested, tried and true throughout the ages to land in our Constitution. And of all the things that they could have talked about in the Constitution, there was only one that was necessary to the security of a free state, and that's militia. So what is it about this thing that we don't want to talk about? What is it about it that it was so critical for us keeping a free country? Because if you notice, we're the last one on the planet. There's 195 countries in the world, and the United States is the one that's different. But ask yourself, why are we different? Because public school doesn't teach you why we're different. That would mean that they'd have to teach you how to enforce this Constitution.
Yeah.
So I think it's an incredible thing, and not necessarily a monumental task. It seems like it on this side of it, but as we climb this mountain, I think that we're going to be able to portray an appropriate image of what the militia is, what it's supposed to be, and dispel some of the things that our crazy and often communist government has created for us.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, just going through all of that, Kevin, just like I say, it makes my mouth water. It's I think this is going to be a fun series that we're going to do. But certainly, I mean, for me, every day in tactical civics is fun. I'm full of joy over it all the time. But here's the thing. If it wasn't fun, that doesn't mean that we don't need to do it anyway. Okay.
Yes.
So we're talking about things that must be done, whether they end up being fun or not. But the fact of the matter is, for any of you who might be hearing this and you're not yet a Tactical Civics member, come in, because we can show you the joy that is in it. Of course, always, 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 we proclaim right up front that we're here to glorify the Lord Jesus Christ in all that we're doing. And he sets the standards for us in each of these things that we're talking about and that we will talk about. So I'm excited to get a bunch of these going. Again, we won't be doing them one right after the other, so you'll have to stay tuned as we release them. But one of the main reasons for that is that we're commencing this series in the summertime, and here in 2025, and everybody among us knows that summertime is prime time for getting projects done and going on vacations and all the other things that happen when the weather is behaving. And so we're going to work this in as our schedules permit. But having said all of that, when we first started talking about this particular episode, I did say that we're looking to, one of the things we're looking to do is to clear up the biggest lies ever told about militia. And so I think, Kevin, as we begin to wind this down, I know that we've done a little advanced work here, and you came back and kind of did a nice job of fleshing out, I think, 4 different bullet points here in this category of lies told about militia. And so I think maybe we'll conclude today with just kind of going through those 4 bullet points. And why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Okay. The one that I see, since I do think of in centers of gravity and kind of military strategy, I think the crux of this entire scenario can only be understood through the lens of what the Civil War was, what the usurpation of Abraham Lincoln was. And so, like, there's people out there that are devout followers of him, but I just want the listener to kind of ask the question to themselves, why is it, Honest Abe? Why is it that he is the largest statue in DC, or of a person? Why is it that he is glorified in such, I guess, gravity, when we kind of all know nowadays that the ending of slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War? It was whenever, if you read both Jefferson Davis's and Lincoln's inaugural speech, which both of them were out, I think, mere days, if not like 3 months before the Civil War broke out, both of them confirmed that it was about tariffs and absolutely would not touch slavery. Nothing about this is about slavery. I'm paraphrasing, but if you read it, you'll see that it wasn't about slavery. And it wasn't until the public support actually started to wane that they used it as an excuse. But why is it that every other country on the planet ended their own slavery without firing a shot, but the United States had to kill the equivalent of 7.4 million Americans to do it? That's nuts.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say on that one, that kind of that lie about because that's a big lie if you think about, like, the Civil War. The function of the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. We'll talk about what they actually achieved, but it was important enough to launch that entire war and a multi-generational campaign to disable it. The militia was the main target.
Yeah.
There were others, but that'll suffice for that one for now.
And as we mention Lincoln and his administration in any sort of light other than, hey, he was the greatest thing, he was the best president that this country's ever had, so on. We realize, and all of us who are involved in Tactical Civics has come through the door, and we've been confronted with these truths, okay? And this is one of those that we talk about as being a very hard truth to get our brains and our arms around here in Tactical Civics. But the point is, it's truth. It's truth. And should we be more concerned with what is comfortable for us. And the reason it's comfortable is because we've all come up through this government run school system, and this is what we've all always been taught. And so it's a hugely ingrained mindset that, hey, Abraham Lincoln, was such a great guy. And we're not here. Let me say it this way: I'm not here to slam Abraham Lincoln as a person or what he believed or what he thought in his heart. To me, that whole thing is between him and God. But certainly, without question, we can point to things he did. And, they're historical facts, things he did. And then you ask yourself, okay, well, let's just talk. Probably the single biggest one is the Civil War, which was really not the Civil War. That's the label that's been put on it. But we call it the war to enslave the states. I think if you're from the South, they have another term for it. I forget what it is. But at any rate, it's a fact. And where was the basis for it in the Constitution? See, yep. What we're talking about here, actions 1, 2, and 3, is enforcing the Constitution. And that war, from what I can see, there's no basis for it in the Constitution of the United States, which is our highest human law. So anyway, I'll be quiet. Yep. Go on with the next one there, Kevin.
Well, I mean, you said earlier that coming into tactical civics and learning these things brings you joy, and it does me as well. But there's an element of that it's almost like I enjoy the discomfort nowadays because it is coming out in droves, the information that we were learning that was propaganda taught to us through these schools. I think that's why we see kind of the counter landscape that's developing in this day and age. Yeah. But the second bullet on this tool was that the militia was inferior to professional soldiery, and the militia of several states, it repelled and defeated the world's most sophisticated army on the planet between 1775 and 1783.
Yeah. Speaking of pointing at things, look at that.
And it was only a small percentage of 3% of the population that took part. And look at the impact they had on a global army. And it wasn't just a global army. It was a mercenary, like German mercenaries that they would come and bring in to fight against us as well, because Britain was trying to take over more. They were in the process of global domination. Yeah. But every American required to have firearms, to the extent that when they didn't, like we said earlier, the government would find them jobs to help raise money to ensure that everybody had a gun. Mm-hmm. That gun was to be kept in the home with the rest of the accoutrements that were required, which was rather extensive. Mm-hmm. So if you go back to that and say professional soldiery, no. Like the typical militiamen were better armed than the best equipped armies abroad. And I know that that's usually what the other side kind of points at is they believe you can have anti-aircraft guns in your backyard. And well, if we taught the morality of our center of gravity, who is Jesus Christ, and everybody understood how to operate in love and understood what love really meant to the God of our universe, we wouldn't have to worry about it. You could have nuclear weapons in your backyard because you're not the type of person that's going to practice killing people.
Yeah, exactly. So what's next?
Bullet, the next bullet?
Yeah.
Is like we've got a National Guard now. That's the same as the militia of the several states, right? I mean, if you think about that, it's really false. I got a quote here, and it's not attributed to anybody, but you can see it in the pharmaceutical industry pretty clearly nowadays. Results consistently favor the opinions of the funding source. So you think about this.
Now, say that again slow. Say that again slow. Say that again slow. Results consistently
favor the opinions of the funding source.
Yeah.
Yeah. AI will tell you that it doesn't happen that often, but we need to train AI to understand the reality of the world around it.
Yeah.
But it says basically what we're going to do here is show them that monumental task of what that generational incremental dismemberment of the militia, and how precisely, because it was so powerful, that's why they did it. It was decentralized. It was in the hands of a new concept that America created, because America is the first and only country that had a middle class, that has a middle class. And that, like I said earlier, is a balancing function. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever you've got law enforcement in the hand of the middle class, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're in the balance of that morality.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final bullet here, which is definitely not an all encompassing list of lies that were told about the militia, is that America or militia in America today is a loose cannon and does not have any authority. We need police forces. Well, again, read the Constitution, see where it says anything about the word police. It doesn't. It tells the militia that they will enforce the laws of the Union.
Yeah.
Um, it
And let's
started six
see, who
generations.
who told them that?
Who
Who
told them
told them
that? The
that?
Constitution.
We the people. Yeah. See there.
Exactly. Yep.
See
Yep.
I see that. I think it's good for us to get in the habit of envisioning when we talk about the Constitution. You know, all the things that are written in the Constitution are somebody saying something to somebody else, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or to others.
Dictating.
And there it is. In fact, I I still go back to the first time I realized coming into tactical civics. Oh, you know what? There was a good reason for those first three words of the Constitution to
Mm-hmm.
be in that huge font, because we the people, not I the person, not I the citizen, we the people. We said we because we meant us all together. We
Mm-hmm.
don't even have to use the word collectively, which, some people shrink back at. There's a discussion about that. We the people collectively. No. Okay. We the people, all of us together, do establish and ordain. And then the
Yes.
rest of the Constitution. So that's us talking to, essentially, first of all, to our servants. And so, anyway, I just think that's a real good habit to get into as we discuss these things, because whatever's written in the Constitution, we the people said it.
Yep. And the tactical civics meme that best characterizes that, I believe, is the one that says, "How our servants see us," and then it's got a picture of a newborn baby sheep, very like unstable with skinny legs, and in the next picture it says, "How our servants need to see us," and it's a large, very mature rhinoceros looking at you,
Yeah,
and that's pretty intimidating.
yeah, you don't
Now,
mess with them.
it's not a violence thing. It's just a authority thing. That's the way that, like,
Yeah,
the chief warrant officer that I had at my first duty station that would say Corporal Ennett, that still reverberates through my bones because of his authority. My dad, whenever I was in trouble, and my mom, whenever she said my middle name,
yeah,
that reverberates, and that's necessary because we are the parents to our child servants. But
yeah,
that loose cannon thing, like the police forces that are nowhere mentioned in the Constitution, like we've been taught these things for six generations, and we see the loose cannon our servant government has become today. Why have the police forces not arrested that problem?
hmm,
They have plenty of time. They've had plenty of time to demonstrate their power to police, but consistently reach the boundaries of their own authority, so to speak.
yeah,
And like you said, we the people is in big letters in the Constitution because we are the largest and most authoritative element of that Constitution.
sovereign.
And the militia is one of the two most powerful ways that we the people can exercise popular self-government.
Yeah,
And despite any good
Kevin.
intentions, present day American, the present day American militia groups nowadays,
Yeah,
they don't have authority because they're not constitutional.
yeah, yeah. As you were describing that, kind of relating it to law enforcement, and so, and let's be clear. Uh, Here in this mission, we're not intending to go after existing law enforcement agencies and dismantle them and so on and so forth. Unless they um, are resistant to, once we get our militia stood up. But you could easily go back and apply that sentence to that situation. So we have paid law enforcement, sheriffs, police departments, so on. So results consistently favor the opinions of the funding source. Okay. So when folks are getting paid to do something, they're paying the most attention to who has ever written the check. And that, anyway, we'll discuss that more, but it's something to ponder,
Can of
something to think
worms.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I see this series. I think this series will visit what the militia of the several states is, what it is not, then how it was insidiously dismantled and who benefited by that usurpation.
Yeah.
In the end, I'll demonstrate how to reclaim this ancient divine tool of power, popular sovereignty, and when paired with a symbiotic law enforcement function that makes America's Constitution truly unique in the world, this world of evil, I think we'll be able to lay the path back to sanity for our republic. And if you don't mind, I've got a quote. Is Dr. Edwin Vieira. He's part of the National Center for Constitutional Studies. He says here, and this is so true, is you'll have a government one way or another. Either we'll have the system of popular self-government the Constitution set up, or you will have some system of government imposed from the top down.
Yeah.
We see it. We see it today.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think that's really a great parting comment. Actually, I think we've kind of Kevin, unless you've got some other piece that you think we ought to mention here during this intro episode, I feel like we've kind of done a pretty good outline of what we have in mind for upcoming episodes, and I certainly am looking forward to it. And again, we're going to be squeezing this in as your schedule and my schedule permit. But you know, hopefully by the time it's all said and done, there'll be a matched set of episodes that people can actually go from one end to the other. So
awesome. No, I appreciate the time. Thank you for hearing me run my mouth.
all right. Well, Kevin, you have a great day. Thanks again. And with that, I think we will just make our parting comments. We appreciate you coming and listening and paying attention. We'll be curious to see what your responses are to the discussions that we're proposing to have. In fact, if if you're listening to this on Rumble or YouTube, feel free to get in those comments. And if you think we're missing something, feel free to drop those in the comments, and we'll see what we can do to incorporate them. But anyway, with that all said, we sure once again appreciate you listening, and may the Lord bless you.